Hi, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Julio Novoa. Today is February 25th, 2023. I hope you're having a great weekend. I was asked by a friend to comment on an article that she'd read related to titanium and its potential neurotoxic effects on the human body. Now, what we have to remember, first of all, is that titanium, although it's an inert metal, is not commonly found in the human body, and as such, just like any other foreign body, if the human body is exposed to titanium, it can have a foreign body reaction. The most common type of adverse reaction is going to be associated with the titanium actually breaking down. Now, it may be inert when it's in a general state, but when exposed to the immune system and natural fluids of the human body, the titanium will break down into titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is neurotoxic. It can pass, or its effects can cause to pass cells across the blood-brain barrier. And because of this, you can start to have cognitive changes, memory lapses, severe increases in depression, and severe headaches or chronic headaches associated with this particular exposure. It's more commonly associated in implants as they're larger implants, such as metallic implants that go as a substitute for joints, or for dental implants, for example, as compared to Essure permanent sterilization device or the Filshie clips. Nevertheless, they are important to understand that even a small amount of titanium that turns into titanium dioxide may have a neurotoxic effect on the human body because of the foreign body reaction. Now, we have to remember that any foreign body, any biological implant can induce what's called a post-implant illness. Post-implant illness, Post Tubal Ligation Syndrome, breast implant illness, mesh implant illness, they're all associated with foreign body reactions under the autoinflammatory autoimmune syndrome induced by adjuvants, or Asia effect. And that's what we have to remember here. It's all related. So if you have a friend who may be suffering from hernia mesh problems, you might have a friend who has some problems with vertebral bone cement, for example. You might have a friend who has had breast implants, or a friend who has had vaginal meshes placed and the such. And worst of all, if you have a friend that has had multiple types of biological implants placed in her body or their body, you're going to see that there's potential risks are significantly higher. So that is the association between titanium dioxide and its neurogenic effect or neurotoxic effects, and how a seemingly inert product may cause very, very serious problems to a patient, and the recommendation would be to remove it when possible. Now, when we're talking about Essure permanent sterilization device, we already understand that it's made of nictinol, a composition or of nickel plus titanium. Nickel does break down, oxidizes, releasing ions. Titanium breaks down, releasing titanium dioxide. Both of these can cross the blood-brain barrier, causing cognitive changes. That's the link between Essure and Filshie clips. Now, what you also have to understand is these particular types of permanent sterilization devices also are associated with Post Tubal Ligation Syndrome. And for women that suffer from PTLS, you have to understand that the syndrome is multifactorial, and that it also affects your menstrual cycles as well. And it can cause, very, very similarly between all of these, is the association of the placement of Essure or the placement of Filshie clips and pelvic pain or abnormal uterine bleeding. So these are the associations with that and post-tubal ligation syndrome. Very important to understand the link, and again, they're linked to the cognitive changes. The recommendation at this point is that whenever possible, remove your biological implants. Why? Because we know that these things degrade over time and get worse over time. So if you've had Essure for 10, 15 years, it might be a ticking time clock time bomb as far as what the final effect is going to be on your body. And the same thing applies to Filshie clips. So when possible, get Essure and Filshie clips removed whenever you can. Now, in doing the research on this particular subject matter, I went ahead and I pulled one of the handouts or the manufacturer information for use, and pardon me while I just read this one particular part because I thought it was important, that it related to long-term use of the particular device. Which is interesting to that as a secondary point is how often it is associated with pelvic pain. 35% risk of pelvic pain associated with the placement of the Filshie clips, which is similar to the effect that we see on with Essure permanent sterilization device. So here's a very, very important point that's listed with Filshie clips. It says, although no adverse toxic or tumorigenic effects due to the device or its materials have been reported, which is false, okay, the effect of long-term implantation are unknown. Can you imagine for decades of use of the Filshie clip, they still don't know if it's going to cause long-term problems? Of course we know. There are thousands of documented cases related to the potential risk of Filshie clips. One of the most interesting things that I read related to Filshie clips is the incidence of migration. Now, we know that it migrates about 25% of the time. That means it falls off the fallopian tube. But how far does it migrate? Here's what's interesting. What I found is that the rate of migration out of the body, mind you, this thing is attached to the fallopian tube. Rate of migration across the abdominal wall, into the bladder, into the intestines, through the vagina, or through the urethra, or through the anus, is about a 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000. So 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000 women who have had Filshie clips placed run the risk of having the Filshie clip not only fall off, but that it will migrate and penetrate the abdominal wall through any of the organs that I just mentioned. I don't even know how women can even sleep at night sometimes related to having these devices in place if the risk if they knew of that particular risk. So I hope this has been informative. Again, I don't mean to scare anyone, but I was asked a question, and yes, titanium will break down to titanium dioxide. Mind you, that's already included in the Essure device itself, and it does have neurotoxic effects. So keep that in mind, especially if you're noticing some cognitive changes related to the Filshie clips, Essure, and this is part of Post Tubal Ligation Syndrome, which is part of Asia effect. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.